All right, everybody. So what I'm doing is I'm changing the transmission fluid inside my car, 2008 Ford Focus. And that fluid is supposed to be more like a pinkish color. That is nasty. All right, and so it's like that because they never changed it before. And this is 2008, so it's kind of an old car. So I decided to change it because there's a bunch of stuff inside here that I have to change that's causing problems with the transmission. So I figured I'll change that stuff on the inside. And you'll notice what I did. I left a bulb there, one here, one on this side, and then one on the other side over here, and took out the rest. But I made sure to loosen everything up with it's an 8mm, so I use this ratchet to just lightly loosen everything up, and just to make sure it would come off easy, because the bolts were they looked a little rusted, so I didn't want to make sure I used this tool first and then end up stripping them out. So I figured I could use this first to make sure it comes off easy. So I applied a little bit of pressure. Then once they moved easy, they moved really easy. And this car is what, 16 years old, and they moved really easy. And then I went and took that, so they came out really quick. And so now if you notice, because it's been on there for 16 years, it's like pressed, there's like a rubber seal right here. That's so the fluid doesn't leak. So you have to, it doesn't just come off because it's been on there for 16 years, right? It's like, I don't want to say seized on there, but like welded on there in a sense. And so it doesn't just fall off. And so the reason why you leave these 4 corner bolts is because you saw what was coming out. All right. And so that's a bunch of fluid in there. So you got to let it drain out slowly. Now there's probably more in there so I got to drop this even a little lower. But when I broke just the corner there, I slightly tapped it there just to make a gap. And so what's going to happen though, if I wasn't cautious with it, you'll mar the transmission face of it, and then that can potentially create just a scratch, where if the gasket, the rubber seal doesn't push into that scratch, it can create a potential place where it can leak from in the future. Then you got to take it back off and then smooth it out. So you have to be really careful with doing that. So now I'm going to have to pry it down even further. So I left a little gap there. So what I'm going to do is pull this down a little more, and then see how much more drains out, because there's a whole bunch in there. All right, I don't know if you can see. I can't tell if you can see or not. Okay, so I'm going to hit pause for a little bit, just to try to work on this, then I'll show you. And so you can see all I did was take those 2 bolts out there and pulled it down a little bit, and so I'm creating a little wave. Oh, splash over there. Now I got to clean that up. But it's still being held on back here to prevent it from, but that little bit I did caused more. Now there's probably some right at the edge there. So if I loosen this up just a tiny bit, and loosen this side up a tiny bit too, hopefully more will come out. So I got to hit pause. I'm by myself. So at this point, all the bolts are out, and it felt pretty light, so I had no problem I had no insecurity about taking them out. Like it was all going to spill all over the place, because it won't. So as I drop this lower, just got to make sure I have a good grip on this end, while watching the back end, make sure it doesn't come down without, like ahead of this front end. All right, and so I'm just slowly, well, the back just broke free, doing that, and then slowly lowering the whole thing down. You can still see it's still coming out. That means there's still some in the pan. So my goal wasn't just to change that fluid, because that's nasty fluid. I had to do that anyway. And you'll notice there's a ring here, which is just a I don't even want to touch it. It's nasty. All right, it's just a piece of, it's a magnet, and you can see this is like there's, all right, that's actually metal from the engine, okay, from the transmission. So this is the filter. I'm going to replace that, and these things are what's causing these 6 things. Now, just 1 or 2 of them was, but I figured since car's got like 220,000 miles on it, and I don't want to do this again. So since these parts had lasted for 220,000 miles, if I don't change them all right now, then chances are I'm going to have to come in and do this again. And this rubber gasket here that made the seal, I'm going to have to replace that again. And I don't want to do that. And I don't want to come in here again. So it's better to spend the money all at once to replace that and these 6 things. All right. Now, this thing is supposed to be replaced every, 60,000 miles, I think. And this is probably the first time in 200,000 miles. So since I figured the transmission, I was going to do this anyway. All right. But since right after I decided to do this, these things gave me a problem in the shifting of the engine, like going from park into first. It wasn't catching right away. So when I looked it up on the internet, it's one of these that are giving me the problem. Now I know which one, but the reverse also started doing it, so that's a different one. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to be in here anyway, and since these parts lasted 200,000 miles, they're probably going to give out again in the future, and so to prevent me from having to come in here again, I figured, you know what? I'm just going to replace all 6 at the same time. So this way, yeah, it'll be a little more expensive in this, but it saves me time so I don't have to come down here and do this again. I'm assuming my car is not going to last 450,000 miles. All right, so I'll be done with this for good, hopefully. So we'll see. All right, that's about it. And then, so here are the parts. All right, the knife is to scrape the surface, but these are the different parts. And here's the filter. It's pretty easy. It's only one way to go in. And this is the rubber seal. They call it a gasket for those who don't know. And I don't even have to put any cream or any type of, quote unquote glue on it. It's because it's rubber, it seals. So that's all. This is a very simple job. It's very, very simple. All right. It's just a little time consuming. I mean, there's no effort really to this. So, all right, guys. God bless y'all.